Bob Maloney from My MMA News, and we are about to get a healthy dose of vitamin D. DeAnna Bennett. DeAnna is heading to Bellator 266 for, let me say, congratulations on her 19th professional fight, which is a hell of an accomplishment. You don't look your age. Trust me, you're not looking old, DeAnna. Listen, before we even get into the business of talking about the fights and all, it's been a year since you've been in there. How you feeling? What's going on? And, just tell me how life's treating you so far before we even talk about, you making that walk to the cage.
Honestly, I feel great. This last year has been a hard one for me, honestly, because in my last fight, most people, unless you know anatomy or know me personally, third round, minute 45 left, I kind of stopped moving because I did a cage switch and felt a pop in my leg and wasn't sure what the heck was going on, and that's when she jumped on my back. I couldn't defend because I couldn't move my hips. I tore my hamstring completely off the bone. And yeah, that's why I couldn't defend anything that she did to me. And so I ended up having surgery to sew that back on. They had to put a few anchors into my pelvis, sew that hamstring back on. So a good part of the last year has been just rehab from major surgery. I've never had surgery like that before. And so having to go through that was rough, and thankfully all is good now. It's not even a concern, like no issues whatsoever. And I actually feel better than I have in training and everything than even before the surgery. And so I'm just super anxious to get back in there. I'm in a good place and doing what I love, and I'm excited.
Fantastic. Listen, before we get into the fight, since this is the first time you and I talked, I wanted to ask you about a couple other things. Obviously, when I set up our interview, I said, let me do some research. I want to see what, with DeAnna, how she got to this point in her life, where she started training. And a couple of very interesting things that I love is in high school, you played water polo and you were a wrestler. Now, listen, I know from talking to some people that water polo, listen, people think water polo, but from what it's really a difficult and strenuous sport, being able to stay afloat and use your body. So talk to me a little bit about that. How did you get involved in water polo? Because that definitely is, underrated as far as conditioning, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it's one of the hardest sports ever. I fight right now, so that competes in one of the hardest sports that there is. But water polo is exhausting because you're swimming the whole time. It's basically like soccer in the water, and people are trying to drown you. Like, that's an active part of gameplay, is actually like dunking other people under the water and like scratching them, and it's all underneath the surface, and it's ridiculously hard. And I'm from California. I've been swimming my whole life, and like I probably swim better than I run, and anyone who's seen me run probably will agree with that, actually. Yeah, and so my high school got a water polo team the year that they built a swimming pool at my actual facility, and I was like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do this. Like, I just love being in the water. Like, I love being outside. I love playing sports, and so I absolutely loved it. And honestly, if it wasn't for that water polo team, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now at all, because of the way just things kind of worked out in my life. So.
Well, there's a couple of guys, local fighters who I know around here, Tim Dooling and Eddie Alvarez. Not the Eddie Alvarez you're thinking of. This is another Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah. No, I know. There's a different one in this area.
Both of those guys give a ton of credit because they both used to swim a lot, for having, both of those guys have like cardio for days. They never get tired in their fights. And both of them tell me that's, from swimming so much as when they were younger, like you are. So that's definitely a great source of cardio. Now, let's move on to wrestling, DeAnna, because when you started, okay, you were in California, and now let's fast forward to I want to kind of compare women's wrestling when you started to what it is now, because it's so much more mainstream. And I see teams around here that have full teams of women. When you started, was that kind of difficult? Did you have to wrestle men? Did you have a full women's team? Because that's a sport that, since you started till now, I mean, it has really, grown and become much more popular.
Oh yeah, it's night and day difference from when I did it back to now. Like I said, if it wasn't for water polo, I never would have wrestled because the assistant coach for the water polo team, he was also the assistant coach for the wrestling team. His daughter, he was gonna put her in, and then he's like, "Hey, you ever think about going out for wrestling?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, not so much." And but I apparently caved to peer pressure. So I joined the team, and it was me, her, and then one other girl. We were the only girls in the team, so we practiced with the boys. And in our district, we were the only team that had girls, and so we would always wrestle against the guys in the dual meets and that kind of stuff. And then, California is a big state, and so every weekend we would do a tournament. One weekend we'd go with our guy teammates, and then the next weekend we would travel somewhere in California and then go to a women's tournament. So going back and forth, and honestly, I think it's great that it's grown so much, and so that girls have the opportunity. And I feel bad because I had to go with the guys just because of them, because some guys are like, oh cool, it's just a competitor, but then other guys was like, well, this is a lose-lose. Either I beat a girl or I lose to a girl. And I'm like, I get that. I get how that's rough for y'all, but I'm sorry, I still want to wrestle, so it's gonna happen.
Well, like I said, wrestling, with you learning the base, you obviously cardio, cutting weight, wrestling. You see everybody say it, Joe Rogan, everybody, that the best base to get into MMA is wrestling because you know so much about, conditioning and stuff already. All right, so that's it. Let's move on to this, DeAnna. You're having a rough training session. You're rehabbing, so obviously you rehabbed over the last year, so it had to be tough for you. Who of your teammates, your training partners, can you count on? Who's the funniest one? Who's the one that if you see him and you're or her and you're having a bad day, that they're going to break the ice and make you forget about the grind and make you laugh?
That's a good question. Oh man, that's a hard one. Honestly, I credit a lot of that to my coach because, anytime I'm having a bad time, I'll put my music on and then all my teammates try and kill me because they hate my music.
I saw that today. I saw that on your Twitter.
Oh, you have no idea. It's like a daily struggle. My coach was just out of town for the last week with one of my teammates, Jimmy, and he was watching it on the cameras when we were sparring and stuff. And so finally, somebody came up and just had a phone, and I was like, what the heck? Why do you have a phone? You have cameras that have audio. And he's like, I can't handle your music anymore. I had to turn off the audio for the cameras because I cannot handle your music. And I was like, perfect. I did my job today. I irritated him even when he's in Missouri with Jimmy. So I'll take it. But as far as teammates go, I have such great teammates that I work with, like my friend Chris. She just fought pretty recently. She's always good for uplifting, and everyone that I work with is just amazing. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but I think my coach is really the one, because he'll try and do the uplifting thing and talk and be like, oh, it's great, and then he'll be like, listen, dipshit, and he'll kick me in the liver, and I'm like, all right, I guess that's gonna work. So
yeah, Brian he always reminds me of a philosopher, a very worldly person. So that it's not just the physical part of the sport that he knows. He's brilliant. He's brilliant, really. He really is. So he probably attacks you as far as working on, we're talking about, breaking the ice, making you laugh when he knows you're having a rough session. So he's a great dude with that way.
He's good people. He's definitely good people. I'm glad to have him as a coach.
Well, like you said, you started in California and you came to the East Coast because you were looking for, being able to expand and become a better fighter. Has that worked out good for you? I saw for a while you were working with Ricardo Almeida's gym. You're a Killer Bee, Combat Sports. You're in a location where it's thriving MMA. Has that still worked out for you? You're hitting different places on a regular basis?
Definitely. I absolutely am super grateful that I made that drive across country. I never want to make that drive personally again. We're just going to fly from now on because driving across the country is miserable by myself. But I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad that I found, my coach, Brian, and Killer Bee. And I love how in Jersey there's like a string of gyms that you can go to. It's not just like one single location. You can get different looks, different places. I do my jiu-jitsu at Dante Rivera's jiu-jitsu now. Dante's going to be in my corner for my fight as well as Brian, and like having those two working together has been super great for me. And like I needed that change, and it's been everything that I asked for. Like, Brian is the coach that I have been looking for my entire fight career, and I feel like I've elevated so much just by having him in my corner. You know, he's helped me reach my full potential, and, you know, it's just the start of getting back into the swing of things. And, you know, COVID kind of ruined things a little bit last year, you know, just lives and all that stuff. But beyond that, like, I used to go to a lot of different other gyms too, and then things kind of happened with COVID. You couldn't quite do that, but, you know, I have my main gym. I have Dante's gym. You know, it's been, I love being out here. Absolutely love it. Like, I still go visit my old teammates in Utah, where I came from. So I went from California to Utah. So I'll go train with them, but like, I'm very happy that I'm here.
Listen, Dante is one of my dudes, man. I love watching. He's one of my favorites corner men to watch. Not that I'm in there fighting, but when I'm covering an event, because you can hear his voice. I mean, he like zones out everything except the fight, and you can hear him, and you can hear the passion in his voice too. So Dante is a great guy. Listen, let's talk about the fight, DeAnna. Listen, Alejandro Lara, she's 9-4. I kind of did my analyzing of the fight. When I look at both of your resumes, she hasn't been in there anywhere not that it matters, but only certain things you can look at. You have fought, your resume is full of several UFC fighters. You are just an all-out beast and warrior, not afraid to get in there with anybody. There's so many names that are still fighting in the UFC that you have fought, and like I said, comparing who you fought to she fought, not that it'll mean a difference in the fight, but when I'm comparing, you have fought some really tough competition. How do you see this fight with Alejandro, and what do you think?
I definitely have the up on the experience, and with the level of competition. You know, since the beginning, since my very first pro fight, I was like, all right, I'll fight anyone. I don't really care. Just put me in there with whoever. Like, that's always how I've been. I've never been like, ooh, I don't want to fight them. They're too tough. Or they've had, like, my, fourth pro fight, I fought a girl that had, like, 16 fights or something like that. And it's always just been like, whatever. If they'll get in the cage with me, I'll fight them. I don't care. So I definitely have the experience. I mean, it's been a while since both of us fought. It's been a year for me, and I think it's been a while for her, too. But she is tough, you know, and that kind of stuff. It matters as far as like fight IQ and that kind of thing when you get in there, but, you know, you have to start somewhere. And, you know, hasn't had as many fights as me, but, you know, she's getting up there with fights too. And so she's scrappy. There's a reason she's ranked number 5 in Bellator. And, you know, it's because she goes in there and she puts everything that she can into her fights. And that's what I expect her to do with this one. And I hope she does, honestly, because that's what makes an exciting fight for the people watching it. And so I think it's definitely going to be a scrappy, and it's going to be a tough fight, but I think it's going to be fun for people to watch, and then fun for me to be in, and then win.
Oh, yeah. Main card, Bellator 266, Vitamin D. DeAnna Bennett. DeAnna, before we go, you got any shout-outs or love sponsors, somebody you want to say thank you to? The floor is yours.
Ooh. See, this is always what gets me in trouble, because I always forget somebody. But looking like this, probably everyone's going to be like, no, we don't know her. Yeah, they're used to seeing me as a swamp demon, so it's okay. It's Sunday. I haven't done anything today. First things first, you for having me on here and talking to me today. My coaches, Brian, you know, I already mentioned him, and his head just gets bigger and bigger every time I say that, even though he's a good guy. You know, all of my teammates at Killer Bee, and then Dante, having him at his gym, and all those guys training with them, because, you know, I'm just like the random weird girl that just showed up one day and then just won't leave, which actually is what Brian says too. He's like, you're like a human STD. Like, you just showed up at my gym one day and then you just never left. Like, it's like herpes. Like, you'll go back to Utah for a little bit, but then you come back and just like a giant flare up that just never goes away. And so I'm like, thank you. I mean, I've never been so happy for somebody to call me a human STD, but good times. So all those guys for all those gyms, all of my training partners, everyone who puts up with me and my terrible music, because that right there is a giant feat, says a lot about your mental state or mine. I have, let's see. I can't wait to show you guys my new fight kit for this fight. Illa Erickson, she has Defilla. She's like the one that I use for all my fight kits. I don't know if that sounds like a really girly thing, but like I can't wait to show you guys. It's just gonna be fabulous. She makes everything absolutely perfect. Like I would never fight if I couldn't wear one of her creations, basically. So have to definitely give a shout out to her. The chicken pound for feeding me, because I need food, even though we're reaching that part of camp where that's a little bit far in between for those. So my manager, Sucker Punch, for helping me out for this. There's like a million other people, and now my brain is just off into who knows where right now. So
okay, well, listen, DeAnna has lots of love for everybody out there. That's all right. Everybody who's helping her, make sure Showtime, baby, main card.
Ooh, my phone just froze for a second.
You're good. Well, DeAnna, listen, thanks again for giving me some time. I know, I'm glad I got you before your hardcore weight cut. I'm sure to,
at this time, so we good.
Good. So you're eating well then. So once again, you can check out DeAnna doing her thing. Bellator 266. Have a safe trip out to California. Hey, listen, you should be very comfortable. Like you said, you were out there for a while, and best of skills and luck. And go have fun and go get that victory. It was a pleasure talking to you, DeAnna. I hope to do it again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
You too.